Welcome to the Medical Device Made Easy podcast. Here is Munir Lazouzi from easymedicaldevice.com. And today we'll talk about a company that is made its journey to the US. And we are talking about the company MysteryVibe. So I have with me Dr. Rakshit, so Dr. Soum Rakshit. So Dr. Rakshit, how are you?
I'm very good, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Very welcome. So where are you located actually?
I'm based in London.
Great. So we are talking specifically about your journey. I mean, your company, your journey, what you have done, and trying to educate a bit the audience about how maybe to go to US and what was your feedback doing that, and maybe some lesson learned that we can get for the audience. But before to do that, so can we have a small introduction of yourself, who you are, what you are doing, and so that we have a better understanding of you.
Yeah, of course. So by studying, I am an electronics engineer. I did my PhD in biometrics. So very much in the biomedical space. So I used to work with ophthalmologists, eye doctors, back in 2004. And my first research was on iris recognition, looking at people's eyes and recognizing them. So it was biomedical, but in the defense and security sector. That was in the University of Bath, in the east of England. So west of England. So we did that till 2008 when I finished my postdoc, and then I was working in Deloitte for 7 years in consulting for 7 years, doing various things related to security. And then in 2014, I started MysteryVibe with my co-founders, and the key thing we wanted to do is get back again to biomedical engineering and solve one of the most challenging issues we all face, which is intimacy after a life event like childbirth, menopause, aging, cancer surgery, general injuries like spine injury. So all of these major life events happen to everyone at some point or many points. And the biggest thing that struggles after that is sexual health and intimacy. And the goal of creating MysteryVibe was, how do you bring that mystery back into the bedroom, especially as we age, with the help of medical devices, but in a very pleasant way, not to make them look clinical and scary, make them look very pleasurable, but fundamentally they're medical devices for pain relief, arousal disorder, erection, and various sexual dysfunctions.
Yeah. And I looked at your website, and it's true that when you arrive on the page of your website, it's looking more, not really medical devices, if I can say colorful. So yeah, just to make it clear, it's medical devices, but people can maybe confuse that also with sex toys, if I can say so.
Yes, and that's on purpose, very much. So when we started, the key advice we got from our doctors that we work with is that if we made it clinical, if we made it scary looking, like a steel dilator, for example, then no one would use them unless a doctor said you have to use them. Yeah.
Okay.
And the adoption would be very low, and we wouldn't really be solving what we are trying to solve, which is improve intimacy in the bedroom. So the main thing was, how can you make it super approachable, very fun, very friendly, something that partners will gift each other, something they will very, very happy to buy as a present, and not think that it's a complex problem solving medical device that they don't want to deal with unless their doctor says they have to.
Yeah, no, sure. And I completely understand the purpose. It's why, as I said, prefer to make this precision, because maybe some people will go now to the website and say, oh, are we talking about the same company, or it's maybe another website or whatever. So no, it's really that. So the objective is really treatment and helping patients after, as you've said, some life events, which is really great. Now, as I've said, we try really to go more on the aspect of quality and regulatory affairs for this kind of products. Now you have decided to go and launch your products in the US. So you had a journey, if I can say, to the US with the FDA and everything. So wanted to go to your journey and maybe how another company that is willing to go to the US, what maybe you have experience on that. The first question I had is maybe first, why the US, as you are located in London? So why US, why not UK or Europe or things? So was there a specific reason?
Yes. So what we found is, even though you're absolutely right, we're in London, we do all our R&D in-house here in Surrey, which is very close to London. What we found is, when it comes to healthcare generally, Americans are much more inclined towards buying things or spending money on healthcare compared to UK or Europe, because here healthcare is expected to be free, and the expectation is very different from a consumer or doctor perspective in terms of paying for anything in healthcare. So because US is pretty much private when it comes to healthcare, and it's expensive, it's much easier to sell a product, especially if it's not on insurance, in US than in UK or Europe. So that's one of the reasons. The second reason is it's much quicker to go through FDA than it is to go through European medical CE. So just as a matter of time, it's easier to start in US than in EU, especially for class 2 and above. Class 1 is obviously different, but yeah, we are class 2, so it's different. The third reason is with US, you know that there is a much bigger market for the same outreach. What I mean by that is, let's say you did a press launch, right, in UK. Only UK people will know. Someone in France, someone in Germany will never find out if we do something in the UK. It's very difficult. The language barriers exist, the cultural barriers exist. So Europe as a whole is really a collection of different countries with different customers, different languages, and different marketing. So if you want to do something in Europe, you really do it country by country. Whereas in US, you do it in US and you do one marketing and it covers, say, 300 million people. So it's much easier to do outreach, to whether it's educating patients, doctors, users, whatever that outreach is, just much easier in the US. The other reason is there's a much higher propensity towards being early adopters. So this is across the board with all technology. Americans tend to be more receptive of new technologies and new companies, which might not be established yet. So, for example, let's say a new watch is launched by a startup. An American person would more likely to buy it early on than a British person. Like, I or my friends, we would think, okay, let's see how it goes.
Yeah, exactly.
Give it a few years, let them figure out all the bugs, and then we'll try it. Even big companies. So I can give you my own example. When Apple Watch 1 came out, I thought, it's too early. And Apple is obviously, the biggest company in the world, but I thought, it's watch. They probably have lots of bugs. I will buy it later. So I eventually got my Apple Watch when it was version 6.
Okay.
So 6 years later. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be that long, but the mindset, whereas my American friends instantly bought it. And they're like, oh, it's a cool watch. So I think it's just a different mindset with new products and new companies in US, where they're more willing to experiment. And I'm guilty of the other side, where I'm less willing to experiment when it comes to consumer devices. And I think, I will wait till it's really good and then I'll buy it. Because I think, especially as an engineer, I know that version 1 will always have bugs. So I think, yes, fine, it's Apple, but still version 1 will have bugs. Maybe I wait for version 2 and version 3. But I think that's such a very UK and European mindset.
I know that. I relate to that.
American. Yeah, Americans do not. In my experience, Americans don't think like that. They're like, this is cool, this is new, I'm going to try it.
Which is great.
So it's a lot of reasons why America is just a very easy country to launch something new, and then come to Europe. Whereas Europe, beyond the regulatory challenges. It's just a consumer challenge as well. A consumer in Europe will be much happier to buy something which has been tested in America for 5 years.
Yeah, they heard about it like, oh yeah, I saw that in when I went to America, it was great. Oh, I want to buy it also. So yeah, it's mainly as you said, let's let the American test it first, and then we can relate to that after to say, oh yeah, it came first in America, and so we'll buy it also. So you had a journey, if I can say. Now you decide, okay, because of all your market strategy, you decide, okay, let's go to the US. So how was your approach to arriving to register your products in the US? So first, did you do everything by yourself, or did you get the help of an agency or a consultant to help you on that? So what was your strategy to work on that?
Yes, so we worked with an agency to do regulatory strategy. So that was step one, is we reached out to one of our friends in US who have gone through the process, and they used an agency themselves, even though they're based in US, who's based in US, worked with FDA very closely. And that's how we started the process. It was a long process. I think the whole thing took a year. They did a lot of research, a lot of just finding out about the regulatory environment of these devices and understanding how the predicate devices work in this space, what they do, what what the history is of in our case, vibration, application of vibration for sexual dysfunction. At that level, what are the devices that has existed in the last however many decades? What are the classifications they have? What are the risks? So all of these things together made up the regulatory strategy. We did two pieces, one on the female sexual health and one on the male sexual health. And that was the piece of work that was mostly desk-based research. Yeah. So that's how it started, the initial piece in US.
Hey, just a second. Do you need a EU, Swiss or UK representative? Then choose Easy Medical Device. We can represent you and also become your importer. Contact us at eo@easymedicaldevice.com. So in that way, if I can say, of entering the market, did you had already a first discussion with FDA, or it was like really never discussed with them, or what was your interaction with FDA at that point?
No, so it wasn't, because first we wanted to understand what is going on. What is our position? Also, because the other issue is, let's say the regulatory strategy came back saying, this is a high-risk product. You will have to do medical trials, and there's a long process, and this is going to cost you millions. Then that would determine what we do, which is, do we then go back to our investors and say, if we do want to follow this path, we have to raise money and do it, because this is not straightforward. So no, we didn't go to FDA initially because we needed to find out what exactly is it that we need to do as a company in order to get to that stage, to make a decision, binary decision. Do we do it yes or no? And no meant, maybe we have to raise money, we have to factor in a lot of time, and we have to decide whether it's worth doing. Yeah. So really the first piece, which was many months, was basically the regulatory strategy work.
And the quality management system is also included in that?
No, so the because that itself is a very long piece.
Yeah.
Building the entire quality management system. So we did that the next year.
Okay.
So the regulatory strategy we did in 2019, and then we finished the year with the FDA registration, and then we did the QMS in 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how was, if I can say, your experience about building a quality management system, and how was your experience about maybe using it on a day-to-day activity?
So the QMS was probably the longest thing that we did, because it was bringing together all the pieces of the company under one umbrella, writing down a lot of things we used to do anyway, but we didn't really write it down. The processes, procedures, templates, starting the internal audits, So I think the biggest difference is before we had QMS, we did a lot of things, but we didn't really think about it. We would we would build a product, but we wouldn't write every single requirement on a piece of paper, for example.
Yeah.
Right. And also we would change things and we wouldn't go back and change all the documents. This is pre QMS.
Yeah.
But post QMS, I think it's better, even though it's a long process and obviously it takes a lot of time to set it up. But once it's set up, I think it's better because it makes it so easy to manage product development because you have documents that have a purpose and you know which document is for what. If you want to find things which have changed, the change management looks at all these things. Other very simple things like customer feedback. Before, we would be passive about it. So we would ship out products. And then if someone contacts us, we would be very happy to hear their feedback, but we didn't actively reach out to every single customer, which we do now. So I think even though it might seem very daunting and it might seem like it's a lot of admin and a lot of paperwork, once it's done, it's really helpful. And I think the misconception is only big companies do it. Like you have to be a big company to do like an ISO or a QMS or have these processes in place. But I feel like even as a small company, we benefit so much by having that in place that the initial work of, let's say, 1 year is worth it.
And so I suppose also, it's true that when we are talking about small companies, we are thinking, oh, it's not needed because we are here, we talk together, etc., which is fine. There is no need for that. When we are hiring a new person, we are training this person how we are doing the things, so they have to understand, etc. But I suppose that when you will be growing and growing and growing, and more people are coming, it will be starting to be more difficult to be in contact with any person one by one because it's normal. It's a big company. So I suppose, and it's what I've seen also, that big companies have that because it helps them also to maintain the same way to do the things, the same way to manufacture products, or the same way to get a recall or to get a complaint or information from people, so that we are really going all on the same direction. I hope here. So no,
correct. And another thing which I found very useful is it makes it easier for us to keep track of all our suppliers because we have processes and we have templates. So what would have been overlooked, in terms of quality assurance, in terms of traceability, now because we follow it by the documents, it's much easier to keep track of what are the suppliers are doing, because often, they might have change of staff and that might affect quality, which might not get detected immediately because they're in Hong Kong and we're in London. Whereas with these documentation, it's much easier to stop any subpar product going out.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I'm really encouraging everyone to have that and to work with that. But sometimes it's true that it's difficult. There is some misconception about this. In terms of product registration, so with the FDA, so can you remind me? So you didn't went through a 510K?
No, so because of the predicate devices, and this is why the regulatory strategy work was so useful, because of the predicate devices that exist, which were exactly the same type of devices. So they also use vibration. They're also for sexual health issues. And they are class 2A and they are 510K exempt. So we could rely and base our classification on a like-for-like device. And we could also be FDA class 2A and 510K exempt. So, and that was an important piece because if we want, then it would need a much longer timeline, much higher cost, and it would just take a lot longer. So I think the key reason why it is what it is because the chances of anyone getting injured or having adverse reactions from the use of a vibrator is almost negligible, which is why the risk is so low that there is no need generally across the board, not for us specifically, for 510K.
And So it means that, yeah, the registration, I suppose, was just to go to the platform to put your device inside, to pay the fees maybe, and here the registration is done. So it's not like the struggle, as you've said, of a 510K to submit a dossier, wait for the FDA to give you a feedback or whatever. You submit, they accept your product class and the thing, and it's done. You can, if I can say, you can sell your product now. It's fine.
Correct. I mean, I think the biggest thing is the QMS, because the easy part, like you said, is the registration if you don't have 510K exempt, but building the QMS, which is still required no matter, whether you need the 510K or not, is actually the long, expensive part. And then the even longer part, which is for us is the key, because FDA only is about safety, right? Yeah. It's not about efficacy, because you could have an FDA device which is 20% effective, but it's still safe. So you could say, okay, it's FDA, but it doesn't mean it's a great device. Like with vaccines, right? You could have two FDA vaccines, one 50%, one 95%, and no one's going to use the 50% one. So it's exactly the same for us. So we then spent 2 years doing medical studies and trials, and then getting to the point where we had published journal papers, which said, and these are completely independent of us, which said, like this device helped improve pain scores by 5 times, or this device helped improve erection scores by 2 times, or arousal scores. So, and once we had that, which was a very long process, only then could we do marketing, because what selling with just FDA is, at least in our space, isn't enough, because a urologist will say, okay, so what's the study? Where does it say that it works? FDA doesn't say it works. So right. So it's quite a long process where you get to FDA, you do your QMS, so it's now safe to try. Then you try for a year, 2 years, however long the study takes. Then it has to get published, which takes another year. So like a 3-year timeline from the time you get your FDA to having a published paper, and then you can do marketing, which says this has gone through studies and it has shown these results in these patient groups.
No, I think it's true that clinical trials is normally something important, for example, for implants or class 3 products within the FDA, etc. But when we talk about 510K exempt, usually the manufacturers are more like, oh, so it's fine, we don't need to do clinical trials, we don't need to throw some millions on doing that. But here, as you said, having also some rationales to say, yes, I'm selling you a product that is working. It's not like just here to, it's approved, yes, but is it working? So this is the question. Is really a great strategy also. In terms of logistics, so you are selling your products in the US now. So how have you worked to have an importer or a US agent or something like that? So was there a strategy also on this?
Yes. So we have a fully owned subsidiary of MysteryVibe. So MysteryVibe Limited and MysteryVibe LLC, it's one company. So it's a fully owned subsidiary. We have our office in US. We have a team in US, and then that imports the products from China, where we manufacture it, to US, and then they are the seller. And UK MysteryVibe, the group, is the manufacturer. So that's how we do it.
Okay. And did you had also to do some registration within the FDA for that, or not at all?
Correct. Yeah. So both our companies are registered. Yes, separately.
Great.
One as the maker and one as the seller.
Okay. So now, I suppose now you are selling your products in the US, and you have already some kind of feedback from the market and everything.
Correct.
Do you have now also some need to have some discussion with FDA, or because FDA is normally also able to come and audit you, if I can say so? Was there any thinking of, sometime maybe tomorrow somebody will knock at the door and say, oh, I'm coming to audit you?
I guess it's maybe it was more common before COVID. It is less common now, but yes, there is no reason for them not to, in theory, but I don't think they do that as much as they used to do before COVID in terms of, coming to audit companies. I know of companies who have been audited, but generally where it happens is if patients get injured, and they complain to FDA about their injury, that's generally when FDA would check more, I think, in my experience. But if that never happens, then FDA is less likely to audit.
Yeah,
But the key thing is, and this is what I tell a lot of my friends who are going through FDA processes, is no matter what happens, as long as you have everything written down, all your processes are in place, and you follow the processes, there's no reason that you wouldn't want them to audit you,
yeah,
right?
exactly. I mean, you
So,
should
so
not be
it's really,
afraid of, or you
you
shouldn't be
shouldn't be
afraid of
afraid
them.
of
Yeah,
being audited, because the key thing is have all the documents and follow the documents, and that's it really. So because everything has risk, and as long as the risk is written down and managed, it's okay. It's like let's say a phone getting hacked. Every phone in the world can at some point get hacked, but
exactly.
as long as you've tried your best to make it not easy to hack and you've written everything down, it's okay.
Exactly. No, I think it's a good mindset, and I really like that, because I mean, if a lot of medical device manufacturer had also this mindset, would be really great, because my life would be easier as a consultant also. So it's really great. A last question, maybe difficulty. So, did you had any issues along the way, and maybe if we can get some lesson learned that maybe somebody else can benefit from? So, it's something that maybe has happened, and if you had to redo that, you would do that differently?
I think the main thing I would do probably more of is I would do more studies sooner, because the time it takes to do any study is so long that you kind of need to do them in parallel, multiple. So that would be my best lesson learned and advice to anyone is, if they think there are studies they need to do, instead of doing one after the other, do them as many as they can in parallel, because often it can be easily 2 to 3 years before you actually have a published result, and you don't want to spend 9 years doing 3 studies. You want to spend 3 years doing 3 studies. So yeah, we're trying to do more in parallel now, whereas in the beginning we were doing literally one study at a time. So I think that is the biggest thing I learned in the medical space, is running multiple studies in parallel is the best way to get publications, which is often, really important when it comes to credibility of a company, is
Exactly.
truly independent studies and truly independent publications. And the more publications you have, or your devices have, the more doctors take you seriously.
Exactly. And so for doing those studies, maybe did you need to use also like a CRO or a company, or you have done that directly by yourself or by your company enrolling the
So
patients?
with lots of different doctors, actually. So we have a clinic in Spain we work with, who focus on sexual health and devices. We work with NHS here in the UK. We work with Harley Street, which is a private healthcare in the UK. We work with doctors in the US. So we do quite a lot of different studies. Again, now in parallel, some in government, some in semi-government, some in private. But really the goal is, how can we get a better understanding of how effective our products are in both different conditions, like dysfunction, with erection, pain, arousal, different conditions, but also different patient groups. Because say erectile dysfunction which is psychological, might have a completely different efficacy with the devices compared to erectile dysfunction after prostatectomy, after prostate cancer, because that's physiological. So, just doing one study on ED with a variety of patients may not be as insightful as doing different studies with different patient groups and understanding what is really where is it effective and where is it not, and what can we do to build the next devices which will be effective where the current devices aren't.
So I think great transition. So what's your next challenge now? So if are you still having some kind of R&D to build new devices or new treatment or new disease to cure, if I can say, or to help the patient with? So what's the next challenge of MysteryVibe?
Always. So we're currently working on menopause as a segment because the original devices, the very early ones, we focused on pelvic pain, which is more on the post-childbirth area, and then erectile dysfunction generally. And then a recent product we started and will launch soon is a menopause device which stimulates the external labia completely with no internal stimulation. So it helps women who can't insert anything because of dryness or pain. And the next year, we're going to make another series of devices to help with the menopause segment specifically. Then the other one we're working on is spinal injury patients. So we created a physical remote control which can control multiple vibrators with the same frequency at the same time to create local loops of arousal, especially when nerves have been cut. And we want to take that to the next level by creating more devices which can stimulate different parts of the body, not the genitals, if the genitals are no longer feeling the arousal because of injury to the spine. So really figuring out more things we can do on the spinal injury side, more things on the menopause side, at least for the next 12 months. That's our focus.
Great. And Europe, is it in target?
Yes, it's very much. So we are almost 1 year into our CE medical work. We are just, there's a big queue for the certifying body. So I think maybe at some point next year we'll get to the point where we are, talking to them. So what we have set for ourselves is like Jan 24 is when we'll hopefully have everything done and be European Medical CE. Yeah.
Great. I mean, I hope, Europe is still attractive. I know that it can be, difficult to go to Europe because of the notified body reach that is a bit difficult. But let's hope that Europe is still attractive also for us. Okay, so thank you very much for all your explanation. I think it was really clear and helping, I hope, companies that are trying to get to the US market. I will put all your details also on the show notes so that people can also go and visit your website or contact you if there is any other questions. But I think we have now learned a lot about how to reach the US market easily, I hope, for such devices. And I really thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Great. So thank you, and I wish you a nice day. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Thank you.